What is up, guys? Today we are doing a review of the leg day I had yesterday. We're going to go over the movements, the sets, the weights, and just kind of break down the leg day. So the first movement we're doing today are RDLs. I believe RDL stands for Romanian deadlift, but these are to target the hamstrings, and this is going to be our first big hamstring movement for the day. So there are a few things that you want to pay attention to when you're doing RDLs. I would say make sure you have some flat shoes. You can see the shoes I'm wearing. They are lifting shoes. They give me a good base to push off of, stable base. Don't use any type of running shoe that has a big foam bottom or a big cushioned bottom. Those are not very good. They don't give you a stable base to work off of. Same thing if you're squatting. If you don't have a flat shoe, some people will just do this barefoot, but don't do it with a shoe that has a thick inclined bottom. Typically those are running shoes or some sneakers. So we're going to focus on the form for this one. Make sure you have an upright chest when you're starting. Have your feet about shoulder width apart, and then when you're bringing it down, you want to slowly control it, and you want to make sure you're sticking your butt backwards. That's one of the cues I use when I'm doing this movement. I think about sticking my butt back as far as I can, and when you're doing this movement, you should be able to feel a stretch on your hamstrings if you're doing it correctly. So start with the bar, don't have any weight on there, and just practice a few sets without weight and see how the movement feels for you. See if you can figure out in which way you have to perform the movement so you can get that stretched feeling on your hamstrings. I would recommend also, if you are feeling a bit awkward with this one, maybe look up a tutorial that breaks down the different cues that help with a proper RDL, because you, again, don't want to hurt yourself. And that's what I did when I was first learning how to squat. Was I looked up a bunch of tutorials and I figured out what worked for me, because everybody's built a little bit different, and you might find something in a video that helps you figure out how the movement works. So this is the end of my first working set. We have 185 on the bar. After this, we're going to do a back off set of 135 pounds. The way I structure my sets are a little different than maybe how you do, but I typically will do the bar to warm up, and then I'll do a 25 on each side for the second warm up. Then I'll do 135 as a final warm up before I actually go for 185, just because it's a pretty heavy weight for me. It's more than my body weight, so I want to make sure that I'm fully prepared for it. And then I'll do a set to failure with that 185, and then I will drop back down to 135 and do that as a set to failure as well. So 2 working sets, 3 warm-up sets. This being the first big movement of the day, I do like to sufficiently warm up, but if you would prefer to just do 2 working sets or 3 working sets and 2 warm-up sets or 3 warm-up sets, in whichever combination, either way will work. As long as you're sufficiently warmed up and you're ready to do the bigger movements, that is the main goal. Now we're going to do our next movement, which is going to be for the quads. It's going to be a leg press. Now I like to keep my feet about shoulder width apart, if not slightly further than shoulder width apart, and I like to point my toes slightly angled outwards, so when the platform comes down, I can let my legs open up a little bit and the platform can go further down and I can get a better stretch. So you'll see here, when I bring the weight down, I allow my legs to open up a little bit, and that allows me to get a deeper stretch in the movement. This is our first warm-up set. We're just doing a plate on each side. Since we've already warmed up with the first movement, I don't think it's necessary to do 3 warm-up sets on this guy. I feel like we got the blood flowing, so let's just do 1 to make the blood flow to the proper muscle, and then we'll go ahead and go into our working set, which is this set here. Our first working set is going to be 3 plates, and I am focusing on proper form, controlling the weight, and also not locking out my knees when I push the platform up. So you'll see here, we bring it down, we go up, and it's not a full lockout at the top, just because it is a bit of a dangerous scenario if you do end up doing that. When you lock out your knees, you run the risk of the weight just making your legs collapse, and people have snapped their legs doing that, so you want to make sure you avoid that. So when you're pushing that platform all the way up, just don't do it all the way. Keep a slight bend in your knees and you'll be perfectly fine. And this is to finish up the set. You'll see that last rep was a lot harder for me to get. I probably could have squeezed 1 or 2 more out of it, but getting close to failure is sufficient. As long as you are within 1 to 2 reps of failure, you should be fine. That first working set felt pretty good, so I ended up keeping the same weight, and we're doing another working set with 3 plates, and we just following the same cues, control the weight coming down. You see I'm not just letting it slam down when it comes down. I'm controlling the weight, and then you can go ahead and explode when you're pushing the weight up. Just don't lock out those knees. But yeah, that is about it for this movement. It is a nice alternative to squatting for your quads if you don't like squatting and how it feels. So definitely try that one out if you don't like squatting. Now this is going to be our next movement. So I would like to pause the image right here just so you can see what I'm doing. This is a leg curl, so this is for our hamstrings, and I am pushing the pad down, so it is basically squeezing my legs. You want this to be as tight on your legs as possible, so there is no play in your legs when you're going up and down, because if you do, some of the energy will be lost in transition. It's going to be not as good of a movement, not as stable. So you want to make sure that this pad has you basically locked down into the chair. So the only thing that's moving in this is going to be your actual legs, at least the part of your legs that you actually want to move. But then after that, I scoot back and then I lean over the pad there and I grab onto it, and then I use my other hand to grab onto the other portion of the machine, and I really focus on letting the pad, the other pad that my ankles are pushing down on, I allow the machine to come all the way up so I can get a full stretch on my hamstrings, and then I go for a full contraction. So I'm basically letting that pad at the bottom hit the machine and letting it stop it that way. That's how I know I've reached failure. When I can no longer hit the pad onto the machine, when I'm no longer bottoming it out, then I know that I can no longer do any more full reps. That is what I consider to be failure. So when you're doing failure on this machine, that's what I would try to do. Aim for just getting full contact with the machine at the bottom, and when you can no longer do that, maybe do 1 or 2 more partial reps and then call it there. But yeah, 2 working sets for this guy as well. This is our second movement for hamstrings. It requires less energy in my opinion, so I usually like to keep it for after the bigger movement of the day. So RDLs first and then the curls next. Same situation with these structure-wise. I like to make sure I do the big movement first, which was the leg press, and then after that I go into these leg extensions for the quads, and that should sufficiently hit your quads for the day. The good cues for this guy are making sure you hold into those handles on the side and you keep your butt planted on that seat as firmly as you can, because if you don't hold on to it, it can definitely come up. And you want to make sure that you have the pad that is on my ankles currently in a good position that is comfortable for you, because they usually have 4 different ranges. You can make it small, medium, large, or extra large. Figure out what gives you the closest look to what you have on the screen now. Right on your ankles, that's where you want it to be. You don't want it to be slightly past, you don't want it to be up on your shins. Aim for your ankles. So a full rep on this machine looks like your legs getting fully extended at the top and then fully as far back as they can at the bottom. Once you can no longer fully extend your legs, then I would consider that to be failure, and you can end the movement there. Next, I did some core work. This was an alternative to the cable crunches that I've been trying to learn how to do. I don't really like them so far, so I'm doing this instead. It offers a very similar kind of positioning where at the top I'm kind of doing a backward extension and then I'm curling in with my upper chest towards my lower legs there. So this one felt pretty good. I've been enjoying it in the program. I've also been doing hanging leg raises as my other form of core. I did those on this day as well, but I had trouble with the footage, so I didn't upload it. But 2 core movements on the core days just to make sure you're sufficiently hitting your upper and lower core. Don't skip core. Core is important, especially if you want your abs to show. You might have great genetics and you might be able to see them just by getting lean, but for some of us, it's a lot easier to see them when you actually put work into them. So I would recommend to anybody, make sure you're doing your core, make sure you're doing your cardio for the day. But yeah, that was about it. That was our leg and core day. Thanks for watching that. I do plan on doing some more in-depth content on the regular. I'm going to try to add more to my videos. We recently stopped doing the calorie recap and we stopped showing all the food, and that's just because it takes a lot of time every day, and I've been pretty busy, so I've been trying to make sure I still get into the gym and still upload the videos, but I've been doing a little less, showing a little less. So I'm going to try to bring that back so you have all of the information that you might need if you're trying to follow this as a guide. But if you have any questions, please ask in the comments or send me a message. I'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, we got a little bit of leg pose in here. The calves are looking pretty good. Not much definition in the quads or the hamstrings. You can see the shape, but nothing crazy. In my next bulk, I definitely want to work on the legs. That is going to be one of my main points of focus. So just to make sure I build up some muscle in those legs, so the next time we do a cut, our legs will be looking a little more diced than this. But not too angry with it. It's not horrible. I've definitely seen worse legs. but I do want to make them a bit better on the next bulk because I feel like they are kind of behind my upper body. Anyways, thanks for watching this if you did, and I will see you in the next one.